Hi there and welcome to the Die House Drumworks. The track I'm looking at here is Rockschool Grade 6. The track's called One by One. Right out of the Foo Fighters book of rock, I would say. All the hallmarks, lots of excitement, nice driving groove feels, and just a little bit of an element of the unexpected now and again as well. We've got a 7/4 groove in the track, and also a couple of other little tricks where things maybe lose a bar from what we might expect the phrase to feel like. So quite often we'll get sections of a song might be broken up into groups of maybe 8 bars or 12 bars, sometimes 4 bars, often multiples of 4. This magic number comes up quite a lot. So when we get a phrase which has got 7 bars in it, we want to really watch out because maybe we'll feel like we want to tag another bar on the end. And specifically I would be talking about in this piece, at the bottom of page 1 going into page 2. The first time through we've got an 8-bar section. But then the second time through, because we miss out 2 bars in the first time section at the top of the second page, we've got the second time section, we've only got 1 bar there. And there's a real tendency when we get into the zone and we're thrashing away through this one and really feeling the music, that we tag another bar on, so watch out for that. The other place where this can happen also is the next second time bar. So on the second page also, at the end of the 3rd line, we've got a stop, we've got a cymbal crash there, where we choke, so we choke the cymbal or damp the cymbal, and then we've only got a count of 2 crotchets after that. Our subconscious is going to tell us crash and then give us a whole bar's worth, so it's going to feel like a crash on 1, we're going to go crash, 2, 3, 4, and then back in. We're going to be a beat late. So we've got to really watch out for things like that and just override our natural erring to create 4-bar blocks and 4-count bars, so watch out for that. Once again, pretty wide dynamically, more of the louder dynamics, a lot of fortissimo and forte, but make sure when we've got mezzo forte, for instance, that we make that distinctly different. So we've got fortissimo at the start, then we drop down to mezzo forte. Not forte, we need to leave room for forte later on. So often when we get this kind of dynamic change, it's worth pushing maybe one of the dynamics a little bit further, either louder or softer, to make room for dynamics that we've got to fit in the middle later on. So watch out for that. Technique wise, in this 7/4 bar, we've got this movement at the end of the bar at quite a pace, 145 crotchets a minute, pretty pacey, and it can this group can easily collapse into something that's almost like a flam, or the bass drum can collapse into the snares. So it's really important to pick your way through that pattern. Make sure that as you increase the pace on that, keep the rhythm really articulated. You've got bars through the track where you've got the 7/4, where you've got essentially what feels like a bar of 4/4, and then plus 3 counts of fill. Again, what I was talking about earlier, be very careful not to fill that up into 4 counts at the end. 7/4 in this case is going to feel like 2 bars of 4/4, which would be 8/4, do the maths. But with a crotchet less. So that's, once again, sometimes when we're used to playing 4/4 a lot, our subconscious will fill in the blanks, which 95% of the time is really useful, because if we're in 4/4, that's great. But when we're in odd time signature, that's one of the things we've got to override here. So dynamics, careful with the rhythm there. There's a couple of points in this track where people come unstuck with the timing and the synchronisation with the CD. I think there's probably a couple of reasons for that. It's really where we get onto the bell ride, so at the bottom of the first page and the middle of the second page. When the guitars are really powering away, sometimes the click can get obscured a little bit in what we're hearing. The setup that I'm using here is using sort of live speakers. I'm not using any earphones or anything. So when you get a section, when you're playing along with an exam piece especially, where the timing is a little bit more difficult to pick out, maybe the guitars are slashing away, or there's a solo. Obviously soloists will sometimes bend the time, they won't be playing obvious tempo around the click. Is that we just need to just back off a little bit, be very aware of what's coming out the speakers, maybe even just drop our volume a tiny bit to accommodate that. But really it's to do with your point of focus. There are points in this track where you can really lose yourself in the music, and just rely on the riff, because the riff's really strong. That you're going to follow that any day of the week, because not only have you got the clip, but you've got the guitar and the bass picking up that kind of riff as well. So yeah, certainly there are areas where you can relax a little bit more and improvise. I say get lost in the rock and roll tasticness of it all. But then other points where you just need to think, right, hang on a minute, I've got to get the timing right here. So really pinpoint that. What else have we got? Technique-wise, pretty straightforward. I don't think there's anything that technically is all that difficult in this track. It's all to do with, I think, controlling tempo and controlling dynamics. If you can get that right, you're going to be able to really open up when you're improvising. A lot of opportunity to improvise in this track, I would say. Especially when we go back on the DS. One thing I like to do when we go back to the sort of the more laid back riff is to maybe do something with the timing of that a little bit. Get creative on that. What else? Yeah, it's pretty much as it is. I would say that once you've got to the level of grade 6, that your reading is going to be able to cope with most of the fills. Some of the early stuff, so the fills, page 1 in the second line there, you might want to just pick your way through, and a good way of doing that is identifying what each note value is and then thinking how long it lasts for. So if we look at the first time bar in the second line, we've got a note grouping there which is on the count of 5. That takes a bit of getting used to. The fact that we've got a count of 5, a count of 6 and a count of 7. So on the count of 5 we've got a 16th note first, so that would last until the count of 5E, which is an 8th note which would last until the count of 5A. So that's a good way to sort of work through, is think about how long the notes last for. And then in terms of sticking patterns, think of 16th notes and punching holes in them. So if we've got 5E, A, right, left, left, so we've missed out the right hand that would have played on and, 6 and, pair of quavers, nice and easy, maybe a pair of right hands, and then 7E and, you're actually finishing up in the same way as you were in the pattern anyway. So, I would have thought you probably would have picked up those kind of reading skills through going through grade 4, grade 5 sort of land. But again, I think we'll probably do a lesson on reading at some point to show you that little skill that can help you work through those fills really effectively. But the rest of it is pretty much quarter notes and eighth notes. So let's have a blast through and see if I think of anything else while I'm playing.
One by one. 1, 2.
Whew, just get my breath back there. It's a young man's game, this rock and roll. So, other things that we want to probably look at just quickly through the chart is that you've got a few accents which are written first time only. So, second from bottom line on the first page, fourth line from the first bar on the top of the second page, from the top of the second page, about halfway down. Yeah, first time only. So you've got notes in brackets, and what that's to accommodate is the anticipated accent at the end of the section. So what we've got, let's take an example, is probably the easiest thing here. So let's take the first time only, first page, second from last line on the first bar. You've got that section, runs through to the top of the second page there. You've got what we call an anticipated accent there. So you've got a crash cymbal and a bass drum that lands on the count of 4 and at the end of the bar. Now where we repeat back, if we miss that crash cymbal out then at the beginning here, what that will do is it will lend weight to this accent. So what we've effectively done is we're moving the accent point from the count of 1 to the end of the previous bar, which is kind of how an anticipated accent works. What I would suggest that you do is that you contrast that. So try putting that crash cymbal in, that it says first time only. So when you repeat back, put crash, another crash there, and see what happens. What you'll find is that this crash cymbal, the anticipated accent at the top of the second page, will lose prominence if we put the one in at the beginning here. So the idea is that we're moving emphasis from one place to another. We're not adding it, we're moving it from one place to another. So by taking weight off there, we add weight to the other one. What else was there? Can't think of anything else, but yeah, pretty much covers the track. So reasonably straightforward, but just get the timing right, get the tempo control right, especially when you're really gunning it, when you're powering through. In the guitar solo, like I say, we can lose the click very, very easily in amongst the guitar notes there. But if you just back off a little bit, listen very much for the tempo, listen for the click, listen for the bass, it will help you a little bit there as well, and just pin it down, really hold the line there, and you should be okay. So good luck with that one.